Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ankahet with WPGN, and here we are in World of Warcraft again. And we're going to look at some of the things that they've changed concerning the new expansion, Battle for Azeroth, that's coming out in, what, 10, 11 days, something like that. So the first thing that seemed to be a concern to a lot of people was this global cooldown change, putting things back on the GCD and so on. A lot of people argued that it would get rid of the hero moments, or whatever you want to call it. But through playing through with the GCD changes, it's not really affecting me a whole lot. I'm on the Prot Paladin now, but I was on the Lock and a couple of other characters previous to this, and it didn't seem like it was much of, it didn't make a whole lot of difference. It might slow combat a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be as big of an impact as people think it's going to be. I mean, originally I thought it was going to be like this huge negative thing too, but that mindset, I will easily admit, probably comes from the fact that Blizzard has a habit of liking to change things without really thoroughly testing them or thinking them through, and they do end up being catastrophic. So that's probably where that mindset comes from, but after playing through it, it doesn't seem all that bad. So let's move on from that. It's not really a huge issue. Let's talk about this artifact weapon thing. Now, as we all know and expected, the artifact weapons were probably going away, and they did in a way but didn't in another way. Now, if we look at the artifact weapons, wrong screen, you'll see here, if we shift click to view its talents and whatnot, all of your talents are grayed out. It says this artifact's power: sacrifice the draw of the darkness from the sword of Sargeras and stabilize Azeroth's wounds. Well, they didn't really do any story writing to explain why our weapons of power were suddenly nullified. This one little line of text that they give us doesn't really do justice to the fact that we spent so long leveling these things up, and I think that if they had put a little more thought into it, they could have easily carried artifact weapons through the new expansion, and probably just retuned how they worked a little bit to make it a little better as far as game flow and combat went. Because let's be honest, some of the abilities that these artifact weapons gave us were really, really, really powerful. And while we all like that, I could definitely see it being an issue for gameplay balance. But to lose them entirely is different. Now, if we notice, I don't think, does it do it on this one? No, these haven't changed. Okay, let me pop out and get on a different character, and I will actually maybe I can do it in a different spec, because I've got both of them for this. So let me swap to Rhett and see if it gives, because one of the things that I noticed on a couple of other characters that it gave me the artifact usable traits or talents as talents in my talent tree. Okay, this doesn't seem to have done it. It looks like Wake of Ashes, which wasn't there before, is now the channeled shield thing, or the Odin Sphere, or whatever the hell they called it, that lashed out and hit several different things. It looks like Wake of the Ashes is the replacement for that. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like. And I noticed that a couple of the other classes had something similar where they baked the artifact talent into your normal talent tree. So you didn't really lose it, it just got scaled with everything else, and made it into your talent tree as a talent instead of being a separate skill on the weapon itself. So we kind of lost them, but we kind of didn't. And I'm okay with that. The only thing that I wish they would have done, and this is me, being one for story and explanations and stuff like that, is give it a better reason as to why these, weapons of legend were suddenly destroyed after we killed Argus and so on and so forth. They're really falling short in the story department, and more on that later. But let's look at what else, let's look what other issues we have here. So if we go to, where is it? Talents. Okay, now we have something called War Mode. Now, this was really controversial, and I don't really know why. I think a lot of people who play solely for PvE and, only do PvP once in a while probably didn't mind this. The PvPers shouldn't have minded this. When you think about it, they probably should have done this, end of Lich King. This is something that needed to happen a long time ago. They didn't do it, and that's fine, but now we have it, and it's called War Mode, which basically what happens is when you turn on War Mode, and as you can see it says this can only be turned on or off in Orgrimmar, and I'm assuming for the Alliance side it would be Stormwind or, somewhere. But basically what this does is it moves your character to a shard or a virtual server, basically, full of people who are in War Mode, which it basically removes open world PvP in PvE realms and moves all the PvPers together so that they can have their, open world PvP and all of that kind of thing. I don't view this as a bad change. I think this is something that needed to happen. In the very beginning of World of Warcraft, open world PvP was a thing. You had your different type of servers. You had PvP servers, you had PvE servers, you had RP servers, you had normal servers, and open world PvP was very much a thing when you were basically in contested territory. A Horde or Alliance, depending on what faction you were, could come up and engage in combat with you because you were in contested territory. Nobody owned that territory, and obviously if you were Alliance and you went into a Horde territory, they could attack you, and vice versa. And that was fine, and that worked for a long time. But as the story and game progressed, the Horde and the Alliance started working more and more together. So the War of the Factions kind of fell off and kind of became a thing of the past. So people that were on those realms that only wanted a PvP were getting, like I remember specifically the beginning of Legion, right? We had the Broken Shore and all that stuff, and you say you started out in like Asuna or anywhere, any of the 4 major regions really, other than Sormar, because Sormar you had to be 110. But any of the 4 regions, Val'sharah, Asuna, Stormheim, or High Mountain, basically what would happen is you were just at, everybody starting out at the same time. You're at the bottom of the totem pole, and these guilds, I remember one in particularly, which was La Familia, would group up together, and even though they were only like level 101 or 102 or somewhere still in the bottom ranks because everybody's trying to level up, they would roll around in these huge packs of like 5 and 10, and they would just kill people as they were questing because it was easy. So War Mode being a thing now, I think, solves that problem. For people who just want to basically gangbang, people that are out questing that obviously don't have the gear to defend themselves against 5 to 10 people. And that's not really what open world PvP was ever about anyway. There's no honor and there's no challenge to grouping up in a group of 5 or 10 and killing one singular person. That's pretty cheap, that's pretty dirty, and nobody other than those people and a small percentage of the PvP community would ever think that that's okay. But that's what was happening, and this War Mode kind of solves that because it takes all the people who wanted PvP and puts them with other people who wanted PvP. So now instead of rolling around in groups, killing one or two people off here and there, they're going to be rolling around in groups, and there are other groups to contest them. So, sorry to say it this way, but you kind of get what you deserve in that aspect. If you're one of those people, this is what you get. Now, the only thing that I don't agree with this is that people who enable war mode get more money, they get more experience, and so on, and I just don't think that that's fair, because that's, providing people who want to play the game one way more than people who want to play it the other way, and that doesn't seem very fair to me. People who, I want to turn war mode on and I want to engage in PvP, okay, that's fine, but why should you get any more than anybody else? That shouldn't be a thing. If you want to go PvP, you should be able to go PvP, and now you can, but you shouldn't get any more than anybody else just because you decide that you want to go PvP. That's stupid. This was a really bad decision on Blizzard's part. I hope it gets overturned in the future. It may not. I don't know. It's too early to tell. But that's the way the war mode works. So for any of you that have questions about war mode, that's the rundown. You enable it. You are now on a shard with people who want a PvP. You are enabled for PvP until you go to Orgrimmar and turn it off. But as it stands, you get the 10% increase in XP, and you get a little more gold for doing quests or whatever the reward system they have for that is. So that's it on that. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was this pre-patch event. I'm not really, I do know how I want to approach this, but I'm trying to find a more political way to put it, and I guess I don't know why I'm doing that. I really shouldn't give a shit. If Blizzard wants raw opinions, they should get them, so maybe that's just what I'm going to do. But basically, they've elected to release a series of quests and events over the course of the next, 4 weeks from when this started, up until the release date of Battle for Azeroth. Now, the first part of it is, I'm gonna try my hardest not to spoil it for people who want to go and experience it for themselves. So I will leave a lot of details out. I will be very vague about it. I'm just going to recap, basically the very basics of it. Basically, you talk to Sylvanas, you go and do a few quests, you make a little money, and it opens up, I think, 4 world quests in Darkshore that you can do, and that's the first part of it. Once you complete the first part of it, you'll gain access to those 4 world quests in Darkshore. They give you a little money. It said that it was supposed to give you reputation, but I've done it on like 4 or 5 characters now, and I haven't actually noticed any reputation gained from it, so that part may be broken, or they just said that and it doesn't actually do it, which wouldn't surprise me at all because they've done that before as well. But you do get access to 4 world quests in Darkshore, and I can show you where they are here. Let's get over there. Okay, so 5 quests. I guess they roll over like normal world quests do. So there's a problem with this. Some of the items are better than what you're wearing, but only by a little bit. Yeah, like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? 0.8 damage per second increase, 1 stamina, 2 to critical strike, and 16 versatility over mastery, which is mastery is better for me, being a prop alley. But it's like, okay, so I guess you could DE them or sell them. I'm not really sure. And I know that they were having problems with the rewards from these being duplicates, and I experienced a little bit of that. Like a few days ago, I was doing it on my Warlock, and there were 3 of the same belt. and then the last one, because I didn't have 4 up on screen that time, I only had, or 5, I only had 4. And the last one was like a pair of gloves. So I had 3 of the same belt and a pair of gloves, and I don't really know what they were doing there. So that's what you get for the first week. Now the second week, you have to go find her again. Talk to her, and she'll have you do some more quests, which you make. You make a couple of 100 gold doing the quests. You get a cutscene. I'm not going to describe the cutscene. I'm not going to describe the interactions between any of the main characters like Sylvanas or Maltherion. This is from a horde standpoint, by the way, of course. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but the thing that I am going to say is that compared to every pre-launch or pre-patch event that they've ever done, this one is extremely bland. The things that happen don't even make sense. Like, the one that I can talk about without spoiling it for you is like the trailer that they released for BFA shows the Alliance assaulting Lordaeron, while Sylvanas tries to defend it. Now I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, it could be possible that because of Gen's hate for Sylvanas, he talked Anduin, or basically convinced Anduin into waging war on Lordaeron to try and kill her. I mean, that would make sense. I could get it from that aspect, but to be fair, the Alliance hasn't given a shit about Lordaeron for a long time. It's falling apart. I mean, the Undercity's there, yeah, but it's pretty much just dilapidated, in disrepair. It's falling apart. It's abandoned. It's been abandoned by the Alliance for a long time. They haven't shown any interest up until this point. So now, all of a sudden, we have the Alliance waging war on Lordaeron because Sylvanas is there, which is in direct opposition. If you do this quest line, we're in week 2 now, so if you do this quest line up to week 2, and then read how they plan on laying this out, the explanation they give for the retaliation, I'll just say it, the attack on Lordaeron and the Undercity is supposed to be retaliation for something that Sylvanas has done. I'm not going to tell you what it is. A lot of you already know. But for the people who haven't watched it yet, I'll let you figure that out for yourself. And that's understandable. But if you think about it, when they released the trailer, we've got the Alliance assaulting Lordaeron while this other event is supposed to be taking place. So how is Sylvanas supposed to be leading her own thing and defending Lordaeron at the same time? There's an angle that no one's thought about yet. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, the attack on Lordaeron came after. And it's like, no, they did this before this other event even, like, it happens at around the same time. If you follow, what the quests tell you, and you follow what the trailer tells you, these events happen about the same time. So I really want to know how it is that Sylvanas is leading an attack on place X, we'll call it, while also being back at Lordaeron, defending Lordaeron against the Alliance. None of this shit makes sense. There's no reason as to why she's doing what she's doing at X. There's no reason as to why the Alliance is attacking Lordaeron, since they haven't been interested and have pretty much neglected it for hundreds of years, if not more. So I really want to know where the story is going, and it just seems that Blizzard has really dropped the ball on lore and storytelling, and it doesn't make any sense. I will say that with the events that Sylvanas is taking part in, if we ignore the Lordaeron aspect for now and just go with the event, if you're playing Horde side up through this pre-patch event, she went too far. There was no reason to do that. And if we think about it, it's not really going to make a difference anyway, because there's not one, there's two. And the other one's going to, come up, and her efforts will have been pretty much in vain. Now, the cutscene that you get is kind of neat. It is, it's well drawn, it's well acted, but it also just, again, doesn't make any sense as to why she would be doing this. And a lot of people say, oh, well, the Horde has balls again. And it's like, no, this is an action. This is not an action of the Horde. This has nothing to do with avenging Vol'jin. This has nothing to do with any of that. This is Sylvanas just doing what Sylvanas wants when Sylvanas wants. So you guys can figure that out. I'm sure that there'll be some half-assed explanation, because none of this has been explained. And instead of creating a war between the factions, as I had read in a post the other night, I think Blizzard's desired outcome was to spark hatred between the factions again. But with the poor writing, the poor quest setup, the bland entry, I think all they're really doing is garnering more hatred for their story writers. So that's the thing. As far as systems, the stat squish did go in, so now we are back at, our normal weaker selves. We don't have artifact weapon power anymore. The GCD is in. I really wish there was a little more to do pre-launch, because there's always been more to do pre-launch, and I resubbed to see what was going on, see if we could get some kind of cool event going, and we got the event that we're doing now, and it's boring as hell. I did it in 20 minutes, both weeks, and I didn't feel engaged. I didn't feel as if any of my choices in the game as a player actually mattered. It felt poorly written. There was no reason as to why. It's just stuff that you go do because, hey, BFA's coming out, we got to give players something to do. Okay, well, why don't you give us something to do like you did with Legion? We had the invasions, that people could level up with. You could get cool stuff. You could, the weapons and armor and stuff that you got, weren't going to make a whole lot of a difference once Legion actually showed up. But they made you a little stronger while waiting for Legion. We had Miss Pandaria pre-launch. We had Cataclysm pre-launch. We had WoD pre-launch. We've had an event, a good-sized, engaging event for every expansion except for this one. They have definitely fallen very short. So far, even 2 weeks in, the pre-patch event is very boring. I can't really say much else about it. It didn't feel engaging, so they failed on that part. And the rest, we will have to see later. I think that's about it. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you later.